Brahmananda, he told Prabhupada pastimes. We all felt Prabhupada's presence in the room. He rarely spoke of himself while glorifying Prabhupada, yet there are 181 letters from Prabhupada to Brahmananda Das, more than anyone else, and hundreds of photos with Prabhupada all over the world. Gargamuni Prabhu and I are compiling a book of all these letters, and we ask for your blessings. For the last 15 years of Brahmananda Prabhu's life here in Vrindavan, he was always engaged in various projects glorifying Prabhupada. He really liked giving Bhagavad Gita class, and his Bhagavad Gita is loaded with yellow posties of other references Prabhupada would give in the purport. Brahmananda Prabhu taught us to look up each reference in a purport and then continue reading, so we get a deeper understanding of what Prabhupada is saying in his purports. For the last 5 years of Brahmananda Prabhu's life here in Vrindavan, I was blessed with the great fortune of serving him as caregiver, god sister, friend, and special prasad provider. He would call me, or I would call him, to discuss what service for the day. Taking him to doctors and bringing doctors to him, they were all drawn to his wise, childlike ways, and sometimes no charge. We got to organize programs for Brahmananda Prabhu in the Balaram hall and in his room for more intimate groups. I'm remembering when Brahmananda Prabhu, like a big, giant, gentle caregiver, insisted on giving Mukhya, our temple president in Alachua, her cough syrup. There were many affectionate times amongst his godbrothers and godsisters in his room, and we would all sit like children at his feet to hear the pastimes of Srila Prabhupada, which seemed to be endless. He was also always stealing Gargamuni's piece of cake. We would have cake brought over, and he would always take Gargamuni's cake. Getting Brahmananda's medical visa was quite a comical event. I had already secured the not fit to travel document from the U.S. Embassy, and now I had to present doctor reports and photos to 3 chief medical officers in Mathura. By Prabhupada and Krishna's arrangement, all 3 were in the same office that day. When the secretary looked the other way, I sneaked into their office and immediately got their attention with the close-up photos of Brahmananda and his 300 pounds. Brahmananda was 300 pounds at that time. I told them, there is no way Mr. Sharaf can travel to America on plane for a new visa, as he can't fit in the seats, the bathroom, or the aisle for such a long journey. He's 74 and he can barely move. He's a great Vaishnava. You please come with me and see for yourself. They were intrigued by the photos of such a huge foreigner. They miraculously agreed, but we know who was arranging. They followed me in their car while I led the way in an auto rickshaw. I called Brahmananda in a dramatic voice. We are on our way. Turn out the light. Get in the bed and put the apnea machine on with your oxygen mask. He was so into it. Brahmananda had apnea where the trachea, it gets closed, and so every night he had to give himself oxygen for proper breathing. We arrived and I knocked. Brahmananda, we're here. The 3 very thin chief medical officers came in behind me and stood at the door while I turned on the light. They all gasped at the same time. I saw 3 pairs of brown and white eyes so wide open, completely stunned. There on the bed lay 300 pounds of Brahmananda's body, lying on his back, wheezing into his oxygen mask with a stomach the size of Mount Meru. I motioned them over to the small couch where the 3 of them sat closely together. I held I helped Brahmananda sit up while he was huffing and puffing and making struggling noise to sit up. All three mouths of the three CMOs were wide open. Mr. Sharaf, can you hear me? Yes. Do you know why we are here? Oh yes, you want to help me. So you see, and I explained to the chief medical officers again, and then I told them that he was a champion wrestler in college, and we all had a little chuckle, and Brahmananda said very slowly, that was in my younger years. Now you see, I am in my elderly and my body is dying. You please give him medical visa, I said, so he can live out the last days in Vrindavan. So right on the spot, all three of them signed off on a certified medical visa. We gave them 3 reservoir pleasures and Mahaprasad, and they were looking happy to have helped a great Vaishnava. 3 months later, our dear Brahmananda Prabhu left us. On that day, Gargamuni had called me around 3 a.m. Brahmananda had gotten dizzy and there was a loud crash. He fell into the TV screen. There was so much glass and blood. Please come now. It took me 15 minutes to get it together and run. No rickshaws at 3 a.m. from MVT to Ananda Krishnavan. Gargamuni was in a bit of a shock, so I began talking gently to him to soothe him. We have to clean up the glass. And so I began to wash all the blood off of Brahmananda's face, a heavy gash on his head from crashing into the corner of the TV. Speaking to Brahmananda Prabhu, how much Prabhupada loves him, depends on him, and kind of joking to get his attention revived. He smiled a few times, so it was slow and sure. An hour later, I called 6 men from the temple. Dharmatma Prabhu, Saranga Thakur, they all immediately came over, and we helped Brahmananda Prabhu into his preaching chair. Just 2 weeks prior, Brahmananda had told us, no matter what condition I may be in, do not let them take me out of Vrindavan. Remember? That was only 2 weeks prior. We thought it was Krishna's humor when an ambulance arrived and 2 skinny guys with a little skinny cot came into the room and stopped in shock when they saw Brahmananda. When we said no need, they looked so relieved and ran out. Brahmananda Prabhu left us at 3:20 p.m. later that day. He just closed his eyes, breathed his last breath, and slid off his preaching chair, as if helping us almost to lie him out on the floor so the men could bathe and dress him nicely. Hundreds of devotees all night long coming for darshan, crying and praying, and such nice melodious kirtans that night. Brahmananda Prabhu really liked the kirtans when they were soft and melodious. It was a Sunday. Police had noticed the gash on his head. The Indian law states that if there is some suspicious-looking death on the bodies of foreigners, it is their duty to do the post-mortem. So they wanted to take him to the morgue, Brahmananda's body. You don't ever want to see post-mortem in Mathura. Prabhupada and Krishna used Ravi and me to convince the Top Gun policeman, the SSP, oh, he's an old man, he fell down, that's all. So please let us honor this great Vaishnava and let us take him to Jamuna. As if Krishna had waved his flute over him, he immediately stamped the release paper to the Vrindavan police. And this was on a Sunday, almost unheard of. So we know that Prabhupada and Krishna were making special arrangement. We drove back to Vrindavan marveling at how Prabhupada and Krishna doing the needful for Brahmananda Prabhu, and we got to be used in his service. So all night kirtans, Ananda Krishnavan owners prepared such a nice, clean, simple place. Remember that nice place? For Brahmananda's body to lie before the rotunda. They made such a whole Ananda Krishnavan. Yeah, they had the ice there.
3 slabs of thick ice.
3 slabs of thick ice, and even 2 giant coolers to keep Brahmananda's body. Yes, and the Kirtan party, Saranga Thakur, many of our devotees here, all night Kirtan. It was very transcendental that he didn't have to go into like an icebox room. And then the next morning, they bathed and dressed Brahmananda's body again very nicely, and a beautiful decorated bullock cart arrived. It was so nice the way they had the traditional way, the hay, and there was flower garlands. Devotees had come, and then it took about 10 men, right? They picked up the sheet that Brahmananda Prabhu's body was on. They lifted it up and put it in the bullock cart. So you can see the whole, the last day when we brought Brahmananda Prabhu's body to the Samadhi. So many devotees came, and then we took Brahmananda to the Jamuna, and it was very nice also how Brahmanas arrived, cows were walking by. There were many auspicious signs, and despite Brahmananda's body being so huge, the fire burned very evenly, and everyone was chanting. And there, you know, in the cremations, there's not so much sadness. Yes, we were sad the Vaishnava left, but we're also very relieved when a Vaishnava doesn't have to suffer anymore in this body. And of course, we all know that Brahmananda Prabhu is serving Prabhupada eternally now in his new form. So all glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Brahmananda Prabhu, and all glories to all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord. Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna.
So now Dharma Prabhu is going to take everyone to the Samadhi. Brahmananda's Samadhi is at the Goshala. So everyone can come there. There'll be nice kirtan, pushpanjali, arti, and mahaprasadam. So we can finish our glorification of Brahmananda there. Hari Bol.
There was just a little addendum to the story I was telling about Dhritarashtra and Brahmananda traveling from Delhi to Mumbai. So we had that carry-on. And then the plane, of course, it was a small plane in those days for the flights within India. And the seats were small, and the place you could put your bags were small. So Dhritarashtra, when they were getting on the plane, he was in a lot of anxiety when he's seeing his size and the size of Brahmananda, how they were going to sit in these little seats. And he said they got on the plane and Brahmananda held up 3 tickets for the 2 of them. So he already had it arranged so he would have his seat comfortably on the flight. He had three tickets for 2 people. Yeah, the 3 tickets. So he was prepared. Brahmananda was prepared. All right, Hare Krishna. Thank you, everyone. And we hope to see all of you at the Brahmananda Prabhu Samadhi. Hare Krishna.